A man from Vero Beach, Florida, with a long criminal history including an attempted murder conviction is linked to 5 unsolved murders which occurred in the year 1992. The man's name was Curtis Huff Jr. He was the prime suspect and the only suspect ever publicly named by Osceola County Sheriff's detectives in the February 26, 1992 abduction and murder of Ruth Hott. He was also a strong person of interest in the November 2, 1992 abduction and murder of Mary Ellen Wise. Curtis Huff Jr. is also linked to the 21st of November 1992 unsolved murder of Antonio Zucco in a robbery which turned into murder. Huff Jr. knew who Antonio Zucco was. He is also connected and considered a person of interest in the murder of Bonnie Goodson which occurred on the 30th of November 1992. In 1993, Curtis Huff Jr. was sentenced to 20 years in prison for the attempted murder of his friend Hamid Jabaili after striking him with a crowbar in a motel robbery gone wrong. He served 12 years from the 20-year sentence. The Mary Ellen Wise and Ruth Hott cases are 2 cases which have previously had the spotlight put on them in the media which are linked to Huff. On the morning of Monday, November 2, 1992, 39-year-old Mary Ellen Wise of Indian River County, Florida, was just doing laundry at her home in the garage at 7:30 a.m. on a normal day. Around this time, an unknown assailant got into her home and forcefully abducted her and took her to her car. The abductor then forced Mary to drive to a bank in Melbourne, Florida on the morning of Monday, November 2 to withdraw an undisclosed amount of money from an automatic teller machine, and then in the afternoon another withdrawal was made at a drive-through window at the United Savings of America Bank on US 1 in Vero Beach. Mary also wrote out a check. On the evening of Monday, November 2, 1992, her then live-in boyfriend John Matronga reported her missing, and he was the last person to see her as he left for work around 7:30 a.m. that day. Her 1991 red Honda CRX car was later found on the morning of Wednesday, November 4, 1992 in a parking lot at the boat ramp on Seaway Drive and Indian River Drive in Fort Pierce, Florida. The car was found with a broken window and there was glass on the ground next to it. It was also reported that the police had found a torn robe in Mary's mailbox and blood was found in the garage where the car was originally parked. The police declined to say if any other evidence was found with the car. Investigators also would not discuss details of lab tests on the blood found in the garage. Mary was reported missing for almost a week, and on November 8, 1992, her fully clothed but badly decomposed body was found in a field about 200 yards northwest of Peanut Lake and about 4 miles west of Fort Pierce by a local Fort Pierce resident. It was later determined from reports Mary Ellen Wise had died of trauma to the head from a blunt instrument. She was brutally murdered. Mary Ellen Wise was a fighter and was in a serious car accident in the early 1980s and nearly shattered every bone in her body. It took her roughly a decade to fully recover from those injuries. Then, someone did what the head-on collision could not, took the Vero Beach woman's life. In 2016, investigators acquired Mary Ellen Wise's red Honda CRX from where it had been given back to her family. The family later sold the vehicle and it was collected from a junkyard in Pennsylvania. Investigators took the vehicle back to the Forensic Services Building at the Indian River County Sheriff's Office and re-examined the vehicle for any potential findings such as hair, fingerprints, or blood. At the time of Mary's murder, forensic and DNA testing was less advanced, and Indian River County Sheriff Darrell Lohr said at the time in 2016 that it's very likely there will be evidence in the car that was overlooked decades ago. It is unknown to the general public as of 2023 if investigators obtained any substantial DNA findings from the re-examination of Mary's car.
This old Honda CRX could unlock the mystery to a 1992 abduction and murder in Indian River County.
There are so many people that loved Mary Ellen, and there's so many people that are still suffering terribly. Just the not knowing.
Mary Ellen Wise was just 39 years old.
She was my baby sister. She's 5 years younger than me. Yeah, that's at my mom's house.
She looks very happy.
She was always happy. She was a quiet, shy person with anyone that she didn't know. Cute as a button. You see her picture over there. And she loved Florida. She absolutely loved it down here.
But here, in this quaint seaside Florida town, is where Mary Ellen was taken forever from her family. Did she struggle?
We believe that she did, yes. She had massive trauma to the body, and she was brutally beaten to death.
The houses are close by, and all the neighbors were interviewed back then, and no one had heard any yelling or any kind of commotion.
Indian River County Sheriff's Detective Greg Farless took us back to the Vero Beach home where it's believed Mary Ellen unknowingly opened her door to a murderer.
She was home alone. There was no signs of forced entry, so we believe that she did know her killer.
Your sister was a cautious person.
Yes, she was.
She's just not going to open the door to anybody.
Exactly.
So you think she knew her killer?
I feel sure of it, yes.
We believe that she was forced to drive to a bank in Melbourne to withdraw money, then back to her bank in Vero Beach to withdraw more money.
An alert bank teller who knew Mary Ellen noticed something strange.
He even made comment to me about how she usually pulled right in at the wall, you know.
Right next to the window.
Right next to the window, and this time she was clear in the third lane. And he even teasingly said something like, "Oh, don't you like me anymore?" Something like that. And she just laughed. But, you know, there was obviously somebody right there in the car.
One day later, Mary Ellen's car was found here at the Fort Pierce boat ramp at Seaview and Indian River Drive.
This area looks very much like it did 23 years ago.
Not much has changed. It's about the same. There's a few trees missing, but it's about the same.
So Mary Ellen's car was found in this exact location. This is it?
Yes, ma'am. This is exactly where the killer parked the car. We're hoping that somebody would remember this. We believe that when the killer parked the car here, someone unknowingly gave the killer a ride. They might have been offered money.
For more than 2 decades, Mary Ellen's car has been in Pennsylvania. After all these years, it could hold the key to solving her murder.
We located the car. The owner in Pennsylvania said that we could have the car. He knew we wanted to assist in our investigation. There was no engine in it, but he said the same interior is intact, and we had our crime scene with new techniques they use today they didn't use back then, processed the car again, and we're sending that evidence off to be tested also.
You believe that whoever the killer is, that person had to fit into this part of the car.
Yes, I do.
Because at the bank, the teller said she didn't see anybody in the car with Mary Ellen.
Nobody in the car. It's a tight fit back there. Matter of fact, it's not even really seats back there. So we believe that the killer was medium to small build.
A killer who knew the area well. Mary Ellen's body was found 6 days later in rural western St. Lucie County at Peanut Lake, a popular hunting and fishing spot. She still had on her house slippers.
I don't think this person has a conscience. It's not like I think they're suffering. I don't believe that at all. I think they thought they got away with it. And they're just as happy as a clam going on with their life. And that's not right.
Even more, detectives now believe, based on evidence, Mary Ellen's murderer may have killed before.
Do you believe the person who committed this crime could be responsible for other crimes in Florida?
I do believe that. I don't think this is the first time that this person killed somebody. And this person still resides in Florida.
How many other murders do you think this person is responsible for?
It's hard to say. I believe that approximately three other murders.
Women?
2 women and one man.
So you believe the person of interest in Mary Ellen's case is connected to at least 3 other murders in Florida?
Possibly, yes.
Detective Farless says he will never give up on Mary Ellen's case. He is hoping for that one tip that could finally lead to an arrest. If you remember anything from that November day back in 1992, no matter how insignificant you think it is, call the Indian River County Sheriff's Office.
It's believed Mary Ellen Wise may have known her killer because there was no forced entry into the home. An anonymous letter was sent to the Indian River County Sheriff's Office 1 week after the murder, and in one part of the letter the writer gave their opinion as to who they believe the killer might be and brought up a young man who was a boxer and had a dog. Mary Ellen Wise also had 2 Doberman dogs and was apparently always attached to them. In the same year as Mary Ellen Wise was murdered, another woman was brutally slain in a very similar crime named Ruth Hott. On Wednesday, February 26, 1992, 41-year-old Dr. Ruth Hott was going to work at the Sandra Roberts Chiropractic Clinic at 22 North John Young Parkway in Kissimmee, Florida. Whilst Ruth Hott was working at the Sandra Roberts Chiropractic Clinic that day, she was abducted. Her partner Gene Wagner called her office and it went to a robotic message. Gene noticed Ruth's car was not there when she got home from work. At that point she knew something wasn't right. Gene went to her office in the evening to see what was going on and found the office door ajar and the telephone line cut. Gene Wagner mentioned someone scheduled a late appointment that night with Ruth. Ruth Hott was reported missing at 10:30 p.m. that day on Wednesday, February 26, 1992. Investigators believe Ruth Hott was abducted just hours before at about 7:30 p.m. from her Bermuda Avenue office. Ruth Hott's business partner, chiropractor Sandra Roberts, said the office had been robbed. Roberts did not identify the items which were stolen, but they were not valuable. Authorities believe Ruth Hott was driven to Vero Beach, Florida 3 hours away from her office after 7:30 p.m. because an ATM camera at a SunTrust bank at 1716 Highway A1A picked up a person wearing a green short-sleeved shirt with 2 buttoned pockets on each side and a hooded sweatshirt covering their face using her bank card. Ruth Hott's body was discovered a day after on Thursday, February 27, 1992, after a young child spotted her body whilst looking out the window on a passing bus at around 8:30 a.m. in an orange grove 10 miles east of the city of St. Cloud in Florida. Ruth Hott's body was found sprawled in the orange grove with dozens of stab wounds and her neck had been slashed. Ruth was found fully clothed and barefoot and there was no sign of sexual assault. A box for a Children of the Sun cassette tape, minus the tape, was found near Hott's body. Investigators also wanted to know more information about a red truck seen around the time she was considered missing around Orange Grove on Hickory Tree Road and Highway 192. The truck was said to have had a crescent-shaped logo on the driver's door and was either a Chevrolet S10 or Ford Ranger with a black side-to-side toolbox in the bed. The Osceola County Sheriff's Office also wanted to know more about a sighting of a white 1979 Monte Carlo sedan parked in front of Hott's office the night of her death. A passerby noticed the car about the time of Hott's disappearance. About the same time, another witness reported seeing a white sedan driving erratically northward on Bermuda Avenue near Hott's office. The car then sped east on Vine Street, and there may have been 2 people in it.
This picture of possibly Dr. Ruth Holt's killer was snapped at a Vero Beach automatic teller machine on the very night she disappeared. The person in the picture was using her bank card. Investigators, however, don't know if Dr. Holt was with that person or not.
It's obvious that you can tell this person went through a great deal to reveal their identity, or to conceal their identity, by wearing a hooded type sweatshirt covered up by a green or teal in color, two-pocketed button-up shirt.
A shirt later found covered in blood next to the doctor's body, many miles from Vero Beach in this Osceola County orange grove. Ruth Hout had been stabbed 12 times, her throat cut. Detectives are also looking for a red pickup truck seen around the Hickory Tree Road Grove about the time of Dr. Hout's murder. If you saw that truck, Sheriff John Lane wants to hear from you.
We'd like to identify the truck, the passengers, and the driver to help further our investigation.
Kathy O'Neill, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
By 1995, Osceola County investigators named Curtis J. Huff Jr. as the primary suspect in Ruth Hought's case. He was already serving time at the state prison in Hardy County for a 1993 attempted murder that occurred during a botched robbery at a Kissimmee motel. The judge who convicted Huff in that case told him, "My picture of you is someone who is afflicted with deep psychological disturbance, and there's no doubt in my mind that you intended the death of your victim." Detectives told the News-Gazette in 1995 that Huff had been a suspect all along and that they had some things on Ruth's case that are leading us places. The affidavit used to execute a search warrant at Huff's father's house in St. Cloud, where he lived, and to obtain Huff's DNA, detailed why he was the primary suspect. The affidavit revealed some of the most damning evidence linking Huff to Hought's murder, including Huff's red pickup truck was seized in the 1993 attempted murder case, and matched the description of a vehicle seen near the area where Hought's body was discovered the night she disappeared. Tire tracks at the scene matched the tires on Huff's truck. A Children of the Sun cassette tape without a box was found in Huff's truck. A box for a Children of the Sun cassette tape, minus the tape, was found near Hought's body. Huff, 5 feet 4 inches tall, fit the height of the suspect in the ATM footage. Huff grew up in Vero Beach and had lived a short distance from the bank where Hought's ATM card was used. Huff's girlfriend told police he often traveled to Vero Beach although he lived in St. Cloud. Footprints made by Reebok tennis shoes at the scene matched a pair of Reeboks seized by investigators at Huff's father's home. But despite all the evidence that seemed to link Huff to Hought's murder, he was never charged or prosecuted. Why didn't they do anything when they found out when Huff was connected to Ruth's murder in 1995? Wagner told the News-Gazette, "I'm upset. I need answers." Curtis J. Huff Jr. from Vero Beach, Florida has a long criminal record stretching to Michigan and throughout Florida. He was a Vero Beach High School graduate and a former airman in the Air Force. Curtis Huff Jr. is also considered a suspect in Mary Ellen Wise's murder. Curtis Huff's parents and Curtis knew Mary and lived across the road from Mary, but not at the time of her murder. Curtis Huff Jr.'s girlfriend at the time in 1992 also lived near Ruth Hought's chiropractic office around the time of Ruth's murder. Curtis J. Huff Jr. was 23 in 1992, and earlier on in the same month Ruth Hought was murdered in February 1992. He committed burglary and grand theft offenses. He was arrested a month later for those crimes, but the charges were later dropped. He wasn't in custody at the time of Mary Ellen Wise's murder. In 1993, he was sentenced to a 20-year term at the state prison in Hardy County for a January 1993 attempted murder that occurred during a botched robbery at a Kissimmee motel. He served 12 years from the 20-year sentence. Curtis Huff Jr. is also linked to other unsolved murders which occurred in Florida in 1992. Both Ruth Hott and Mary Ellen Wise were murdered 30 years ago in 1992 in eerily similar circumstances, as both were kidnapped, taken to an ATM machine, and their bodies were both eventually found in fields in Florida.
New at 11, honoring victims of violence and the loved ones often left behind to endure a lifetime of pain and regret. The Indian River County Sheriff's Office held a special ceremony tonight, and News Channel 5's Megan McRoberts was the only local reporter inside. She's live in Vero Beach. Megan.
Michael, that ceremony tonight was held here at the islands, the Veterans Memorial Island in Vero Beach, and in attendance, some families who have at least had some closure knowing who is responsible for killing their loved ones. Others are still waiting for that answer, such as Mary Ellen Wise's family. Now, 23 years after she was murdered, her sister is hoping there is still someone out there who knows something so they can close this cold case.
Raphael Walden,
Once a year, there's this ceremony.
Lori Lynn Weber,
A somber gathering of people remembering a loved one.
Louise Leimer,
A loved one who was killed or murdered, like Sharon Correa's baby sister.
Mary Ellen Wise,
This is my baby sister. Her name is Mary Ellen Wise. Sweet and funny.
November 2nd, 1992. Mary Ellen was abducted from her Vero Beach home, robbed and beaten to death at 39 years old.
She was brutally murdered, brutally.
Her body found 6 days later in an isolated area of St. Lucie County. Many people tonight know who to blame for the death of their loved one. 23 years later, though, Sharon is still waiting for that answer.
You know, you never lose the hope.
Making another plea to the community to help close this cold case.
Somebody knows, and maybe they don't even know they know.
It's a crime that's taken a toll on Sharon's family, overcome with grief.
He also killed my mother. She started dying the day that my sister died.
Determined to put it behind her family for good by fulfilling a promise to her mother.
I promised her we would never, ever give up.
The names of more than 150 victims in Indian River County were read, and there are still at least 10 murder cold cases open in Indian River County, including Mary Ellen Wise's. If you know anything about her case or any of these open cold cases, you're asked to call authorities. Reporting live in Vero Beach tonight, Megan McRoberts, WPTV News Channel 5.
Mary Ellen Wise was brutally murdered 3 decades ago, and her family and friends are still fighting so her killer can be caught and be brought to justice for the horrific, despicable crime they committed.